The Ryukeloni training grounds were quiet, save for the distant sound of the wind and the rustling of trees. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the ancient stones. A group of young warriors sat in disciplined rows, their attention focused on the two historians standing before them. This was not a day for training or combat, but a day to listen and reflect on the history of their people, a history forged of fate. The elder historian, a grizzled veteran whose once dark hair had turned silver with time, stood tall beside the younger historian Ren, a woman known for her wisdom and strength despite her youth. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had already earned the respect of the warriors in training. Her eyes were focused, deliberate. In the distance, leaning against one of the old stone walls, stood Zol. He had recently earned his title as a full-fledged warrior. His face was stoic as always, but his eyes lingered on Ren. There was something there, familiarity, perhaps even admiration, but it was subtle, buried beneath layers of restraint. Zol was simply there to listen, as disciplined as ever. He shifts his focus to the elder who begins to speak.
In the time before our people were one, two warrior cultures were thrown together by forces beyond their control. The Spartans, masters of discipline and strength, and the shinobi, heirs to the shadows, swift and unseen. For years they fought each other, divided by their pride and tradition. But while they battled, a greater threat approached, the Order of Him, a force armed with technology and weapons from a forgotten age.
The elder's voice was rough but steady, commanding the attention of the young warriors before him. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over them.
The Order of Him sought to conquer the fractured lands, and they descended upon Beach City with fire and fury. They believed no one could stand in their way.
Slightly narrowing his eyes, the elder leaned in.
But they did not know what lived within us, something stronger than any gun or bomb.
Zol, standing in the background, watched the young warriors lean forward in their seats, captivated by the elder's words. He allowed himself the briefest glance toward Ren, who was preparing to take over the story. There was a flicker of something in his gaze, recognition perhaps, but he quickly looked away, returning to his usual silent stance.
The Spartans and shinobi could not face this enemy alone. Reluctantly, with the occupants of Beach City, they forged an alliance. The Spartans formed walls with their shields, holding the city's gates as the machines of the Order rolled forward. The shinobi moved in silence, striking from the shadows, sabotaging the enemy where they least expected it.
She glanced briefly at Zol, just for a moment as she continued.
As they fought, something deep within them began to awaken, a force they had never felt before, one that allowed them to move beyond their own limits. The awakened spirit had emerged, giving them the strength to fight on when their bodies should have failed.
There was no change in Zol's posture, but his eyes flickered when Ren spoke. There was a history there, unspoken, lingering beneath the surface. The elder continued on with fire in his words.
The awakened spirit is not where our journey ends, it is where it begins. For those who seek to truly understand their power, to become more than what they are, there is the path of ascension. Walk this path as our ancestors did, as Ryu, the dragon, the blade of our people, and as Keloni, the turtle, the shield of our land. This is what it means to be Ryu Keloni.
His eyes wandered over the students, then drifted to Zol, who remained at a respectful distance. The elder's gaze lingered for a moment longer, an unreadable expression passing between them. Zol didn't react, but he felt the weight of the elder's look, perhaps a silent acknowledgement of Zol's journey. Ren addresses the students once again.
To ascend is to go beyond the limits of the body, to awaken the full potential of your soul. But it is not something that can be taught. It must be earned, through battle, through meditation, and through understanding oneself. Few have ever reached the point of awakening. Fewer still have walked the path of ascension.
She allowed herself the briefest glance in Zol's direction, her eyes catching his just for a moment before returning to the young warriors in front of her. Whatever was between them, it remained unspoken, buried beneath the weight of their duty.
To complete the path is to become ascended, to gain mastery over mana, their life energy in all living things. But we, as a people, do not focus on the end of the journey.
He gestured briefly toward Zol, as if reminding them all that the journey was ongoing.
We focus on the path we walk.
Zol, still standing at a distance, shifted his gaze to the younger students. His face remained impassive, but in his heart, he knew the weight of those words. His own journey had only just begun. He had unlocked the power of the awakened spirit, but the path to ascension was long and fraught with trials, both within and without. As his eyes returned to Ren, he couldn't help but wonder if their paths would cross again, not just in duty, but in something deeper.
The world is changing, and with it new threats will come. We cannot rely on the awakened spirit alone. To protect our people, to protect this world, we must strive for ascension. It is a path that each of you must walk, and only you can decide how far you are willing to go.
Remember, you are not just warriors. You are the future of the Ryukeloni clan. The path is long, but it is your duty to walk it, no matter the cost.
The young warriors bowed deeply, absorbing the words, while Zol lingered in the background for a moment longer. His eyes found Ren once more before he turned to leave, his expression still stoic, though his thoughts were anything but. The history of their people was as much a part of him as the scars on his body, but something about the way she spoke made him feel the weight of it in a new way. As he walked away, his mind turned over the possibilities. The path to ascension stretched before him, uncertain and long, but Zol had never shied away from a challenge.